Hey everyone. Well, welcome to the UFO Hub live stream. Today is open lines, and I actually came a little bit more prepared this time. So, the past few open lines that I've had, most of you have been viewing and logging in and submitting your questions over chat, but nobody really wanting to chat with me directly over Telegram. Maybe you're too shy or don't have the time, but that's all right. This time I reached out to a friend of mine, and she knows I'm joking, but it was very difficult to get a hold of her in the sense of, I think it was maybe 12 years ago that I first heard her story. And then pretty much for the past 10 years, I've been just sort of begging her to come out and talk to me or to talk to UFO Hub to share her story. And she didn't want to. We came a few times, came close through email, and then something happened. And then not that long ago, maybe 3 years ago, text-wise, there was something close and it didn't happen. And whatever is going on now with all the planets aligned, whatever is happening energy wise, I'm happy that she was able to make it and she's on with me today. And of course, it's voice only, so I asked her to call in, but just to show you basically the whole point of me telling you the story is how much she does not want to talk about this, and I think it's a very riveting story, and I would love for her to share it today. And um, Oh, this is what I have forgotten. Earlier, before we went live, I meant to ask her something else, and I thought I remembered, but that wasn't it. Um, I wanted to ask her if she would be okay to take some questions either over text or people asking her directly on Telegram. And so I'll ask her when she's on with me, but that was the one thing I could not remember before we started. But anyway, in case she does want to take questions and you are not on Telegram, please make sure that when you submit on any of the platforms that you're watching this right now, please put in 3 asterisks before your question, so that way I know it's directed towards Liz. So anyway, you can also join if you already have Telegram and a part of the UFO Hub Telegram group. You can join right now to listen only, and that's also the avenue in which you can ask Liz the questions that you have. All right, I think that's pretty much it. Did all the parts I wanted to, so I guess let me bring Liz in, and then we can get started. Welcome, Liz. Can you hear me?
Good evening, Adnan. How are you?
Oh, I'm just fine. Well, anyway, I'm very well beyond fine. I'm very happy you actually, are doing this. I appreciate it. So we were testing a little bit earlier, and everything turned out to be all right on Telegram. We want to make sure that I can hear
hmm
it just fine. And there was a part of another story that she's like, "Oh, I'm not going to share this," and I said, "Please don't. Do share. Whatever you have, I would love to hear the whole thing from beginning to end." Anyway, so. Liz, I'm going to shut up now, and you have the floor. However, you would like to start out, please do, because I'm excited to hear your story again.
Okay, well, thank you for having me on tonight. I'm very happy to be here. And it has been a long time since we've seen each other. So it was a delight to get your call. Thank you. Okay, I have a story about having hybrid children. And I guess the story actually starts in 2009. I'm going to kind of go briefly over a few things that the audience might need to know. In 2009, I had a near death experience, and that opened up all my psychic channels. And I had never had anything like that happen before. I didn't know I had any psychic abilities. I didn't grow up in a family that, ascribed to that kind of belief system. So I began studying Cryon and Abraham Hicks and reading Jane Roberts and listening to Bashar and all those kind of things for about 5 years until I connected with a group known as the Team. And they came into my life because I needed some healing. And I had read a lot of Dolores Cannon's work, and I knew that energetic healing worked. And so they came into my life, and I began working with them. And at one point, I had told them about some experiences that I had with UFOs and that I had been visited by a young man, and I didn't understand why. And I thought that he was a hybrid. So they felt that it was time to let me know that they had a program where I could meet my hybrid children. So I agreed to that readily. And I set an appointment and I went into this not having any idea how involved I had been. Um, I'll talk about the session that we had. I connected with them through a channel who lived out west, who no longer is doing channeling, by the way. She had an injury to her head and she's no longer able to channel. But for about 9 years, we worked together. And on this particular time that I had the session, I was told that I have about 530 children that have my DNA in them, but that these two in particular had the highest amount of DNA of mine, and they considered me to be their mother. And they were very excited to meet me. And I'll tell you what, it didn't seem like it was real. I'd never grown up to believe that I would be involved with anything like this, but I was curious. So I did the session. And it started with me being asked to keep a blank mind, not to try to create anything with my mind, just keep my mind blank, and that I might feel some movement. And I did. I felt some movement, more like an etheric thing rather than just. I was laying on my bed at home when we did the session. My physical body didn't move, but I felt energetically I was moving. And then at one point they gave me the idea of being on an elevator, and the elevator stopped and we were going to get off, and it was on a ship. And I saw the elevator door open and I walked out into what felt like a big shopping mall. It was huge. The ceilings were really high. The walls were curved, as if it were circular, but it was really, really large. And there were all kinds of seats all over the place. There was like a lounge area that I had walked into, seating for all different size beings. And I had the impression that beings from all over the universe came here. And there was someone who greeted us when we got off the elevator. And she was kind of like dressed in a blend of uh, like a police uniform and a Red Cross uniform. She was kind of like half nurse, half police officer. And I was told that she was the person who was in charge of the hybrid program and that they were very careful to protect these children. So I was invited to come in and I waited, and there was a there was a like a two-story area, and there was a second floor with railing, and there was like a door there that kind of looked like a camera lens. Do you know what I mean? Like the kind of camera lens that's circular and then it can open. And I saw two children come out of there, but they didn't look like human children, which surprised me if they were supposed to be genetically related to me so closely. One of them was tall. She looked like a white cat who walked on her back legs, and she had a tail, and she was beautiful. And then the boy was about 6.5 feet tall, and he looked like a Sasquatch. And they came walking down the stairs, and they came to greet me. And the team that I was working with, they asked me if I would ask them telepathically their names and if I would ask them to spell it. And it was kind of interesting because when I asked them each separately to tell me their name, I was told that they had picked their own names and they would spell it for me. And the first one, the daughter, was Arianya. and they spelled their names for me. It was as if I was looking at them writing it on a chalkboard. And so it was Arianya was the girl, and the boy was Jonathan, and it was spelled Jonathan. And I was told that I will know later in my life where he got that name from, but they had named themselves. So after we got past that, uh, to to get us, I guess, closer to physical contact, I was asked to put my hands out. And I put my hands out in front of me. And then, if another human being puts their hand close to yours, you can feel their body heat. Well, that's kind of like it was. I could feel their body heat or their energetic field right over my hands. And after I was comfortable with that, they asked me would I like physical touch. And I said yes. And then when my daughter put her hand in mine, it felt kind of like an animal paw, but she had really long fingers and it was a really thin hand, and her hand fit well within mine. It was skinnier than mine. And then I was given the opportunity to hug her if I wanted to. And so I put my arms up around as if I were giving her a hug, and I could feel her giving me a hug. And then likewise, I did that same thing with Jonathan. And his hands, I was surprised. His hands were twice as big as mine. It was almost like he's wearing a catcher's mitt or something. And and then when I went to hug him, he was very muscular, and I could feel his love coming at me. It was amazing. And the team of ETs that I was working with, they kind of laughed and they said that he was very emotional. So some of these beings do have our emotional fields. But then after the hugs, they asked me if I would like to talk to them about what they did for a living. And so I they wanted me to practice telepathy with them. So I asked Arianya, what did she do for a living? And it was interesting because she was so easily able to communicate with me telepathically right through my forehead. It was if I felt a tingling in my forehead and it came right through. And she said she was a scientist and that she was one of those working on the program for hybrids. And then when I asked Jonathan what he did for a living, I had a hard time understanding him. I could see him sitting at a council, kind of like an air traffic controller, and he did something with some kind of a screen, and he was an explorer out in the universe. But I had trouble understanding what he was saying, but it was so interesting because I could feel his emotional field very easily, but I couldn't feel my daughter's at all. And so that was quite a difference between those two kids. But then the last thing that I really, really loved, and this was just so wonderful. I'm glad they did it this way. It was the ability to gaze into each other's eyes. And they had to make some adjustments. They asked me to try to keep my mind blank while they got ready for this. And then I was able to see as if I were looking through a pair of binoculars. And then they must have pulled the veil away, and I could see directly into my daughter's eyes. And I gasped because they were so beautiful. They weren't blue and they weren't green. My eyes could not focus on the color because it was somewhere in between. Apparently, some color that we don't see with our human eyes, but my eyes were trying to figure out what it was. But they were beautiful, and the whites of her eyes were pure white. No kind of bloodshot or anything like that in her eyes. And the the irises were circular, but they had a little kind of pointy edge, like cat eyes, like those cat eye glasses from the 50s that they used to kind of go up in the corners. her eyes did that, and they were just absolutely beautiful. And I could see little tiny fine white hairs all the way around her eyes. And at first I thought, am I looking at a picture? But it wasn't. I realized when I looked really deep into her eyes would adjust just a little bit. You know, like when you look in somebody's eyes, their irises, adjust a little bit. And none of us ever blinked when we were doing this. I don't know why, but I just didn't blink at all that I remember. And then they switched and let me see Jonathan's eyes. And his were more like looking into a dog's eyes. They were dark brown, they were very bloodshot, and it looked like almost like a pink eye or something. And, that's pretty much all I remember. But his eyes were bigger. And so, anyway, let's see. It was eventually it was time to leave. And they told me that if I ever wanted to get in contact with them, that they would come if they were available when I called them. And it's been about, I guess, 10 years or so, and I've never called upon them. And the funny thing is, Adnan, that you called because I had just asked them about 2 nights ago if they would come and visit me. And yesterday morning, when I woke up, the message I got that first came into my head was, they will come at the appropriate time. And then you called for this interview, which I think is very telling. Maybe it was time, for me to talk about this. But I will tell you that I understand that this program is something that's only done through soul contracts. It is never victimizing the humans. We have agreed in this time period, or actually, it was about 20 years ago, I guess, is when they were doing a lot of this hybridization. That was at the height of, I guess, human health before we started eating so much crap and having so much pollution in our environment. And future versions of humanity were not as healthy as our generation back in the, I guess, the 70s and 80s. And they came back to reinvigorate humanity's DNA through their ancestors. And I and many other people who have participated in this program, we we donated under a soul contract, so we weren't victims. And I participated in this, but I didn't even know it. When this session was over, I walked out and I went into my living room and I sat down on my couch, and my husband was sitting there watching TV, and I guess he thought I was watching TV, but I was staring at the wall. And I I stared at my wall for like 3 hours because I didn't realize I had been involved in something like this, and the magnitude of the program and the ramifications of it about reinvigorating our species was, and then also creating new species, because we are all part of the creator. We are the creator in individuated human lives. And so it's normal that we would participate in things like this or create things like this, programs like this. So it was a wonderful experience overall. It took me several days to kind of shake off the awe feeling about it. And I've known other women that suspected that they had babies that were taken, or, they had experiences that made them wonder. And they probably were participating in the program, and they probably won't know it until they cross over. But I was very lucky that I was working with a group that did offer me this special program. It was started, my ET friends tell me, by John Mack, the Harvard professor who, was involved with helping people that had been abducted. And when he passed over, he asked them to set up this program as a way to help humans to understand and to heal from this this participation in case they were angry or upset or feeling victimized. Because I'll tell you, it's very healing. Once you know that your children are okay and you meet them, it's just a wonderful experience. It really is. It was life changing for me. And then a couple of years later, just on my own, I don't know how I did it, but it was in May of 2017. I was on my computer late at night and it was about midnight. And I thought, I've got to go to sleep. I got to get up in the morning. So I closed the lid on my computer and I went to sleep and I had a visitation on a ship. And I was ushered onto a ship and I was led to a child that looked like it was about 2 years old. And I was told that he was mine and that he was about 9 years old. And I absolutely knew that was true. I don't know how it is when you're in this other dimensional uh, environments that you just know certain things. I guess your consciousness is wider awake. And I knew that that was my child. And so I began to play with him and I felt love for him. And he didn't know how to play. And I pick him up, because he was small. And I like want to kind of toss with him. You know how human children are. They were always giggling and playing and running around. And he didn't. When I picked him up, his arms and his legs stayed at his side. And I told him, "You don't know how to play, do you?" And I was going to take him and show him how to play. And something happened on the ship that scared me. And it wasn't intentional for it to scare me, but it did. And I screamed on my, uh, in my human life, I screamed and woke myself up. And then I realized I had been on ship and I was still connected to the ship energetically. And I realized I knew that I had the option to go back. I could go back to sleep and go back to the ship if I wanted to, or I could stay where I was. I could, end the session. And so I chose to end the session because I knew I had to get up early in the morning and I shouldn't have been up that late. But I knew there was a ship over my head, over the house, and I knew I was connected to it energetically. And as soon as I made the decision, no, I don't want to go back, that energy just dissipated. It was kind of like almost like an umbilical cord to the ship, and it just dissipated. And I knew that. And I went back to sleep, and I never did go back to the ship that night. So anyway, that's kind of my story, and I'll take questions from your audience if they want to text them in.
What would I have some of my own for now, real quick. So,
Oh, sure.
what exactly caused you to scream? Just to clarify, do you know?
Okay, I probably should say that they didn't mean to frighten me. It was the goddess Hathor came, and I wasn't expecting to see her, and she had the most benevolent look on her face at me, but she scared me. I didn't expect to see her, and I it was just frightening experience for somebody I was not very well initiated into metaphysics and um it now if I saw her again I wouldn't be afraid at all, because she looks like part animal and part human.
And so, have you had? So you haven't had any more contact or with anyone out of the 500? Were there any others that were revealed to you?
That's a good question. No, I haven't met any others. It was those two through the program John Mack had set up, which, by the way, that program's no longer in operation. I was told about 2 years ago that they closed that portal. And then the one visit was, in 2017. I don't know how I got up on the ship and how I got involved with that one, but nothing else since then.
So basically, you're talking about this program was created to kind of help alleviate some of these fears for those that have been quote unquote abducted and see it as an abduction, right? Is that what you're referring to?
Right. John Mack had worked with a lot of people that were abductees, and he knew that they had a lot of fear and they didn't understand what was going on. And when he passed away, he asked these beings on the other side to develop a program so that those who were wondering are concerned about what had happened to them. And I really didn't feel like I was that concerned, although it had crossed my mind several times. But for people who were willing to do the work and willing to go up on the ship, that it would be very healing for them. And it really was for me. And it's also very instructive, I think, if you can help other people to come to terms with it. Maybe at some point I'll be able to help other people, to come to an understanding that this program is benevolent and loving. And I don't think they're doing it anymore because they got enough DNA from all of those of us who volunteered. And I don't think humanity's DNA is as healthy now as it was 20 or 30 years ago. So, it was a good thing that we did. We are the ancestors of the Greys. There was a certain version of humanity that lost their vitality. So this was just helping them to reinvigorate it and then create other species. From what I understand, they're known as the Yael. I think they're part of Bashar's group,
Hmm.
part of Bashar's people. He's a hybrid
Right,
himself, from what I understand.
right. And so basically, then they're not just all humanoid, meaning closer to looking like us, but they have all these different, other DNAs mixed with them, based on what you just explained, just on the two encounters that you had with your children. So basically, there's could.
That's a really good point. Yes, they can have all different kinds of looks. I have the impression that Jonathan and Arianya, because they don't look human at all, will never probably walk around on the planet, or at least not during my lifetime. But there are some that do look human, and I do know that they are living here now. Because about 2 years ago in April 21, 2021, I got a visit during the night and I was asked. Now, my human body was asleep, but my consciousness woke up when I was asked these questions. And I was asked if I would be agreeable to take on a teenage hybrid child in my home, that I would be giving a larger home to live in. And it was totally up to me to decide. And I said no, because I was too old. I feel like I'm too old at this point. So they were very, very kind and they said, okay, they honored my decision and they, withdrew. And so I know that they were housing, or they've been finding housing for these children. And I know that there's two Arcturian hybrids that I've met. One of them is Vivian Chevet, and she has a YouTube channel and she's doing monthly meditations with people and healings. She's wonderful. And she openly talks about being a hybrid. And she looks completely human. They worked on creating her body. They had many, many tries to get it right. And so that's I can give you a few recommendations of places to go and people to, investigate if any of your people want that.
So let me just say something to the audience watching. So for those of you who are on Telegram, if you like to ask a question, please raise your hand or tap that you want to. For those watching and just want to submit it, please make sure you use 3 asterisks before your question. And so please just have them come in now while I still keep asking some of the other questions of Liz. Liz, so you said that later on it would be you would understand why Jonathan was named Jonathan. Did you find out by this point?
No, I haven't, and
Okay.
I'm curious. I know that it will happen because every time the team would tell me that something was gonna happen in my future, it eventually does. So, it'll be interesting to find out why he chose the name Jonathan. I'm probably gonna laugh when I find out.
Right. Well, so I know from Bashar, since you're also familiar with him, he was talking about that quite possibly the Yael would be, I don't know how it's agreed upon, but kind of be the first ones to make
Hmm.
contact because they look very much like us, so it would be the least amount of
Yes.
fear and all of that. Can you confirm that maybe? Can you speak on that at all? What are your thoughts?
I think that that's true because the team that I worked with said that um, they would be living among us and that they will understand us because they are partly human. So they will understand and be able to relate to us and talk with us and understand our feelings and opinions and you know, our orientation to the cosmos. And then they will also, though, be connected to the other race that they're from. So they will be fantastic as ambassadors. They will be very gentle and loving. They will have a high energy field, a high level of consciousness. They'll be telepathic. Um, they will be a wonderful go between when this happens. I feel that first contact is coming. Really, I just have a feeling that's in about 3 years, 3 or 4 years at the latest.
Right. Well, David Jacobs always, he's kind of discovered this on his own way, but because of, I guess, um, this is just my opinion. I think because of the way he does the hypnosis technique, he can only really derive negativity from people because he keeps them in that emotional state to where they're just reliving again what had happened without truly understanding why, you know. And so he
Hmm.
also found the same thing that there would be hybrids, but he looks at it more of like a hybrid takeover, and I'm only bringing that up because I do want to point out there that there are other people that have other thoughts about this. Can you maybe give a counterpoint or just speak more on that?
I don't know anything about his work. That's the
Well,
first
no,
time I've heard
not
his name.
necessarily his work, but for example, like, do you agree with that or you don't agree with that? Obviously, you don't, based on how you've been speaking already. But because there's that from that unknowing mind that it fears that it's a more of a takeover and an intrusion into our lives. What would you
Yeah,
say?
I think humanity is fearful of what they don't understand. I think we go to fear first. And I was afraid myself in the beginning when I started to interact with these beings, but over time they proved themselves to me to be very loving and very caring about humanity. Now I know that not every being out there in the cosmos has our highest good in mind. But as long as you work with these beings through your higher self, and I have a great set of intentions that I was taught that only, beings of the Christ light and the Christ consciousness can interact with me. So I feel like I have pretty good shield set up. But if you're working with somebody that is encouraging fear-based things or they're very fear-based themselves, well, that's you're going to get that kind of result. But I'd say the higher level beings, they have so much love that comes out from them. You can't help but relax and feel honored and respected. And, um, you know, I don't know what to tell you all
Right.
except that I've always had great experiences.
So these hybrids that are here already, are they still aware that they're hybrids themselves, or at least most of them, or are
Yes.
there some that don't know it and that later on they'll somehow be activated or remembering who they are?
As far as I know, they know who they are because they are connected telepathically with their other civilization. And so they're trying to learn how to be human and what it's like to be human, what it's like to go to the grocery store, what it's like to go to the dry cleaners, how you interact with people, how you dress appropriately, those kind of things. You can really only learn by interacting with others. So they're doing that now. From what I understand, they're living in pretty remote places, except that I was living in the Midwest in a regular little condominium development, and they asked if I wanted to, take one into my home, and I don't know what kind of cover story we might have had, to explain why suddenly this being's living with me, but
It's your long
apparently
lost
that
son.
one. Yeah, really. And, I think the reason they came to me, Adnan, is because I had about 6 months before that visit asking me if I would take a teenage hybrid, I had actually had custody of my human grandson who was a teenager, and I had taken him in while his parents were moving to a different city, and they were gone. It was during COVID lockdown, and he wasn't with them for a period of time. And I gladly stepped in, and I was the custodial grandparent for him for a while. So I think maybe the ETs thought, well, she was open for that. She'll be open for another one, you know. But I really wasn't.
Boy, I tell you, I don't know how the hybrid teenagers are, but I know human teenagers, if they're anything like them, it's like, Lord help us.
I know, I didn't want to go through that, but after my conscious mind thought about it for a while, I thought, well, no, that would have been the easiest kind of teenager to raise. I wouldn't have really needed to raise them. I would have just needed to kind of, teach them social skills and, give them cover, give them a place to live and an identity to have, so that they would fit in. But, my conscious mind didn't answer. I think it was my soul that answered,
Mm.
no, I'm too old.
Right, right. All right. Well, I have Liz, I have several questions. If you
Sure.
don't mind me start asking you. So I think you might have already answered this one. It's Liz, or I mean, Hazel is asking. So are they splicing DNA? And I'm assuming that that is the case, right?
I don't know exactly how they're doing it. I really don't. I didn't ask that.
Okay. Uh, Flotilla is. I'm trying to. I'm just going to read it. I'm sorry if it makes sense to you. Enter it. If not, please, let me know and I'll ask, anyone to clarify. But this one says, "Are the Manus beings under the ocean?"
Are the mantis maybe? Mantis
Maybe
beings
it's
under the
spelled
ocean?
Manis, so it could be a misspell.
I don't really know. I don't know where the mantis beings live, what their dimension is. I don't
Right,
know if they're living under our ocean or not.
right. Um, Crypto Mojito is asking, Vivian, Vivian. Please spell last name. My headphones are terrible at a noisy place.
Pardon me?
The gal you mentioned, the other hybrid that has a YouTube channel, you said it was Vivian.
Oh, Vivian Chevet. It's
Oh, okay.
Viviane Chevet. She has a
Is
YouTube channel. Last name is Chavet.
is it spelled Vivian?
I think it's Vivianne, but I'll be
Okay.
happy to forward that information to you.
Well, thanks for clarifying. Maybe Crypto heard you as you answered. Um,
Sure.
Cosmic Camper 555 is asking, thank you for sharing your story, Liz. Do you know who the father of your hybrid kids is? If so, is he ET or human? Also, did you sign up for more than one hybrid program? If so, which ones?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. I didn't even know I signed up for a hybrid program at all. So I don't know if I'm signed up for more than one. I only know of one program, actually. So I only know of one at least. What was the first question again? I'm sorry.
It says, do you know who the father of your hybrid kids is?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Is he
You know
human or
what?
ET?
From what I understand, it's a mixture. These two beings, the two children, considered me to be their mother because they had 51% of my genetics in them. They also had a mixture of other human beings, and I don't know how many males and females also contributed to their genetic mix, but I know that I was 51%, which kind of surprises me because they didn't look a thing like me. So they
Right.
must have favored the other species that they were, I would imagine Arianya had a lot of Lyran in her because I think the Lyrans are feline, right? And then the Sasquatch, there must have been some Sasquatch in with Jonathan, with his with the way he looked.
Right. Okay, yeah, Flotilla just clarified, yes, it was mantis, asking if mantis beings are under the ocean, and
Oh
you
yes,
already answered that.
I don't know. Yeah.
Right. Same question from him. I said, I'm assuming he's referring to the hybrids. It says, um, would they teach us about technology?
I assume they probably will. They'll probably have higher level consciousness. They'll be able to bring a lot of things to us. When I think about the hybrid children, I kind of get an idea like Elon Musk he seems to me like he's a hybrid. I don't think he is, but that's kind of like the kind of person that envision that they might act like, because he
Right.
seems to be not completely, just the average person. He's really,
He
really
has a way about him,
super.
that's for sure.
He does have a different way about him, and he's so highly intelligent. And I think that he's maybe a preceptor for what they're going to be like. Just think of all the inventions that we could have if we have beings here on the planet with higher level consciousness who have great compassion for humanity and have a very loving way about them. I think it'll be heaven on earth, really. It'll be
Right.
great.
Do you think we would go through this fearful process of so many years ago that these conspiracy theories were put out on the internet about Project Bluebeam and this alien attack, faking or the alien invasion? Do you think that's still very, very possible before we eventually have actual contact, or do you think it could be somehow subverted?
There was a book written by Colonel Corzo called The Day After Roswell, where he was the one who was the keeper of the UFO file on Roswell. And he said that the thinking at that time in 1947, they had just finished the World War, and they were thinking in terms of warlike behavior. So they automatically assumed that the visitors from outer space had ill intent, and they automatically assumed that they were going to be enemies. So they didn't want to panic the culture because they couldn't protect us. So they just acted like it didn't happen, and they shut down everybody who attempted to bring it to light. And there were a lot of threats and intimidations. And I highly recommend that you read Colonel Curso's book, The Day After Roswell. It is a true story according to my ET friends, and they had recommended that I read it. I had never even heard of the book before, but he wrote it a year before he died, and he talks about the mindset at that time when they wanted to scare people about it because they didn't want people to know the truth because they were fearful of these beings.
Right.
And I guess after World War II, when there was a lower level consciousness, that was the automatic direction that people went. But I think people are so much more aware now, and it's been slowly dawning on people that there's a new way. Consciousness is starting to open up here on the planet, and people are reading, things like, Jane Roberts books. Dolores Cannon books are fabulous. I've read about, I guess, 12 of them. And there's just so much information now that's coming to light. The internet has really brought a lot of good things. Now you have to use discernment. If anybody's trying to make you feel fearful, or if they're trying to take away your free will, I would disregard that person and stick more with if you train yourself on the really good high quality stuff like Bashar or Dolores Cannon's work, Jane Roberts' work, the Stargate work, all of those, once you get accustomed to the really high quality, love-based messages, then you'll disregard the fearful stuff. You won't even be interested in it. And it's taken me a long time to be able to tell the difference between the two, but I really can.
Well, it would be
So
pretty
I
awkward.
recommend those. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it would be pretty awkward if they do start, some kind of fearful program of fear mongering and they actually show up and it's like, because obviously, well, because I don't know, I don't, I can't say that the way I'm thinking is like, logically 100%, foolproof that there's, no dent in that theory, but everything that we always think of is always conquering, always has to come through fear or violence and all of that. And
Mhm.
just having understood what I understood, and you as well, they been around a lot longer than we have been. It's like, why wait
Mhm.
all this time to do something, quote unquote bad, when you can just take over the planet when we weren't even around? So there's, I
You
think,
know,
just
yeah,
go ahead.
that's exactly the question that I asked them. I said, "When are you coming?" And they said, "Not until humanity is ready," because they don't want to scare us. They don't want us to be afraid of them. And they told me, if we wanted to hurt you, we would have done it already. They don't want to hurt us. They want to be friends. They want to welcome us into the cosmos, into the greater galactic community, but we're not ready yet. And so they're waiting. There's some of us here on the planet who are waking up, and there's people far ahead of me that have been working with them for years. And I think what they're doing is they're coming to those whose consciousness is ready and open and wanting, and when enough of those people, you think of a candle in a dark room. When the first candle goes on, it illuminates a little bit, and then as more candles start to light up, the light gets bright. And I think that's probably how it's going to happen. It'll just take enough people who are conscious of it and accepting and wanting contact that it'll eventually happen. And it may happen in a phased in way, just with certain groups of people over time, you know.
Right. But, I don't, it makes me, I don't know, it's such a silly even thing to say, but it makes me sound like such a Bashar fanboy, but I can't help but,
I'm a fangirl.
right. I can't help but all the things I was listening to and that led me to where I am here today, it was right about this time that he's, was talking about this 20 to 25 period that, you know, um, how did he say it exactly? I even have the section. Maybe I should do a little short, of the video that I already filmed with Daryl. He was talking about.
Mhm.
He didn't specify how we would know, but that between this period that we would know that, you know, um, extraterrestrial life exists. Well, the
Yeah.
Congress hearing just came out. I mean, how can you be more? I guess I was so anyway. I was looking more to see like why didn't it have this bigger effect on the rest of the population? And even scientists are looking at this. They're so stumped on the word of biologics. They're like, well, it could be, blade of grass. It could be this. It could be that. And so they wanted more of that proof. So I guess my first assumption, yes, they want pictures and proof and video and all of that, in order, I think, to jump more on that. But then based on the words and the way that hearing was happening, everybody's dissecting it to this minute level about what does this exactly mean and what it could mean and all this other stuff. So I don't know, maybe just an actual just ship on the ground, aliens walking out, or some video, something more enticing to where everybody's gonna be like, oh, okay, let's stop, look at this. Because we got what we wanted from the government. When you really think about it, we got what we wanted from them. A sworn testimony in Congress talking about we have bodies, we have crafts, period. It's like,
Mhm.
so, but I guess it's okay, great. Now show us, the videos. Otherwise, we're going to go about our business and not worry about anything else. Well, because somebody was saying
Yeah.
something to me, this is a cool person. He didn't mean anything like in a negative, but he's kind of agreeing with a meme he saw not that long ago, where it says the government just admitted there's aliens, but gas is, whatever, $3-4, and my groceries, bill doubled, and I have, taxes higher up. The last thing to think about is aliens, and I'm thinking to myself, it's like the same way that most people are constantly going to churches, going to these places of spirituality, trying to understand what's going on, why they're here, trying to find a bigger purpose in their life. To me, going down this ET route and exploring and researching that will exactly get you that. Because I would say, if you are looking to see if God exists, if you believe that God created everything, right? For those that are
Hmm.
very religious, then
Hmm.
the possibility that there's another race out there, that by your own theory, that means God also created, would you not want to know what the other creation of God has to say, about our existence?
Exactly, exactly. That's right.
Right. So
And
anyway,
I don't think that the creator stopped with just Earth.
right. I'm
There's
just mainly
many.
trying to find logic to get this average
Sure.
person to kind of also get on board, instead of just saying I have bigger problems right now. you know.
Yeah.
Let me see. Oceanus, I can't pronounce the name. It says taking questions. Yes, we are. We're about to finish up. So if you have some questions, please submit them now. I would be more than happy to then ask it of Liz. But yeah, Liz, is there anything else you wanted to talk about or cover?
Well, I can't really think of anything regarding the hybrid program
Hmm.
this
You know
evening. I
what?
think
Let
I've
me just
said
chime
pretty
in real
much.
quick. If you do have any more content moving forward, please do consider coming back and to tell us about it, at least in this format, since it seems to be, comfortable for you this way. So, please keep me in mind.
I'll be happy to. Thanks.
All right, Paul. I'll hold you to it.
Okay, that's
Yep.
good.
Yep. Yeah, well, so the saying that program that you mentioned, that it ended now and it's not going on anymore,
Hmm.
for at least, it stopped about what, 2 years ago. Do you think
Yeah.
that, I guess, everyone that needed some closure and understanding and kind of a settling of their nerves, that they got what they needed from it? Because I don't know that there would be, missing over a person, or going like, oops, we got to reinstate the program back up because we forgot about two people.
I think there's probably a whole lot more people that didn't get to take advantage of this opportunity. I was lucky because I was open to working with these beings. I'll just say that how they came into my life was that I had been reading Dolores Cannon's books, and I had gotten on her waiting list. It was 4 years long, and I got sick and I needed to see somebody before 4 years. I couldn't wait that long, and I was in a lot of pain and discomfort, and I decided absolutely when I woke up one morning, I am not going to a regular medical doctor and having surgery and all kinds of problems in an aftermath like that, and having pain. I am going to heal this alternatively, and I'm going to seek alternative healing. And the very next time I went to my computer, and I was actually trying to look up Dolores's contact information in Arkansas, and my computer kept scrambling the signal and kept giving me all kinds of weird things. And I took my hands off my computer to fold them across my chest, and I thought, I'm going to have to take this stupid thing into Geek Squad and get it fixed. And they unscrambled the signal and they set it down on their website. There was at one time an ET healing website.
Mhm.
And I was so surprised. And I looked at that and I said to myself, somebody wants me to read this. And I read the whole website. It took me really a couple of days because it was pretty comprehensive. And it had a really loving feeling. And it said that this is how we can interact with humanity in a non-threatening way, and that we had tried to figure out how to reach out to people and be of service. And so I made the appointment, and it was the best thing I ever did. And
Mm.
apparently, they tell me after a while that I already had a soul contract to do this work with them, but I didn't know it, which is why I was drawn to it, to begin with. But
Right.
that program, it no longer exists because the channel who was living out west, she had a head injury. She can no longer do channeling. So it was a real heartbreak for me about 2 years ago when the session stopped for me
Right.
because I felt like I got cut off from my best friends.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Um, so mm, Oceanus has still not submitted the question, or not that I can tell
Okay.
here, but there was one other question from Carol. I think she was
Hmm.
maybe asking the chat, maybe you, I don't know. I'm going to read it and I'll let that be the last question then. Basically saying, I seen an alien with a long, prominent chin. Just curious what type of alien. And I don't know
I
if anything,
I would have no idea.
okay.
No,
Yeah,
I would have no idea. I'm sorry.
yeah, there've been some, it just sounds like there've been some of them out there that have these kind of features, but you don't hear about them very often. It's always ones that are gray, close to humanoid, or
Mhm.
insect-like.
Yeah, that's not, unfortunately, that's not a gift that I have of being able to see them. But boy, I can feel them and I can tell the difference between a Pleiadian, a Nocturian, a Syrian. When they come to visit, I can tell the difference between them, but I can't see them. So not everybody, has the same set of gifts.
Right. All right. Well, Liz, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
You're
Again,
welcome.
keep
Thank
me in
you for
mind
your
for the
service to
future.
humanity.
Well, I don't know how much of service it is, but for whatever it's worth,
It
I hope it
is.
does some good.
Well,
All
whoever
right.
needs to hear this interview will hear it.
Right. Right. Okay, well, you have yourself a good evening, and enjoy the rest of the evening, and we'll stay in touch again.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you
Bye-bye.
take care. All right, well,
Bye.
everyone else watching, I appreciate you join in again next week at 7 p.m. Hopefully, I'll have another guest. I did I've been reaching out to several others. There have been some scheduling conflicts, and some just haven't answered or gotten to answer me yet. So I am working on it, and I'm pretty sure once everybody starts getting back, it'll be pretty much a flood where I might just have a guest for a month or two in a row. But we'll see. For now, next week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Tune in. But thanks again for tuning in today to hear out Liz's story and to be with us here tonight. All right, take care. Have a good day.